Hey friends, it's Tracy. I have 3 Farmhouse Apple DIYs to share with you. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. These are my country tin can apples, just recycling and repurposing some fun tin cans. Here are the supplies I'm using for my tin can apples. By using the little vinyl tile wraps, I really feel that it gives my apples a high-end look, and they turned out perfect. And so the vinyl tiles, I actually found mine at Family Dollar, but some have found theirs at Dollar Tree and maybe Dollar General. Now I just have an average size vegetable can, and then this one right here, the larger one, is actually a leftover can. It was a formula can I just kept in my stash for my grandson because I'm like, I may want to use it for a project one day, and that was it. All right, so I just measured out the cans with a black Sharpie marker and just cut everything off, or just cut it out with my scissors. Now this is kind of thin, and it is a little thin, and so I did kind of burn myself a little because it gets hot. So I used that masking tool from the Dollar Tree just to hold it down so that I would not burn myself anymore. Now I cut off any of the excess of that vinyl tile from one can, and then I used the extra part on this one right here, this bigger one, and so that works really good. All right, so then I am just giving it a coat of crimson color chalk paint, and this covers so well. I didn't want to get paint all over my hands, so that's why I'm just using gloves, because when I am using red paint, I just tend to get it all over my hands. And so I just gave it, like I said, one coat of the crimson color red chalk paint, and then I go back later and use my sanding sponge and kind of distress it a bit so that I give it more of a rustic look. For one of the cans, I used my smooth edge can opener to cut out the can so that I do not have any sharp edges. I just chose this because I wanted to have the lid as well as the can, but I could always use the bottom of the can like I'm doing with the bigger one. And so since I had the lid of the can, I'm just taking just some Fabri-Tac glue as well as some hot glue, and then I cut out a piece of that vinyl so that I would have the same look on the top and the bottom, and then I'm going to just give it a coat of the red crimson color paint. Once it was dry, then I gave everything a just some white splatter paint. I just do that with my stiff brush and a stick, and just go around and just give it some splatter paint just for my apples. I'm making some country apples, and this is the look that I like. All right, so to make the bow for my country apples, I just pulled out some homespun, and homespun is fabric that you can see on both sides. They usually have like a gingham or a check pattern. So I'm just cutting out pieces of that as well as some muslin fabric. I just ripped it off, ripped it, probably about a quarter, or actually about a half of an inch, so that I would have the torn edges. And then I just put some pieces of that together, and that is going to be my messy bow for the top of my apples. Now for the kind of like the rustic part of it, I like to use this jewelry cording that I get from the craft store in the jewelry section. I just gave it I just made about 4 loops, 2 on each side. I think I made 4 loops for the smaller can, and then 6 loops, which is 3 on each side, for the larger can. And then I just tie all of that together. For the wood stem of my Apple. I just have this bunch from Dollar Tree, just pulling out a couple of those that I like the size for. I'm also using some of this greenery garland I got from Hobby Lobby, and that is going to be the leaves for my apple. I'm also pulling out some fine Excelsior that I get from Hobby Lobby or either Joann's, and then I just wrap that garland, that leaf garland around the stem, just, kind of until I like the look. And then I just glue on my bow, and that is, this, my country apple is just so cute. And you can, use these little country apples since it has the lid. You can make a little gift out of it, put a little something in there, and just make someone's day. And so then for the larger can, I had turned it over, because I'm using the bottom because this one doesn't have a lid. So I'm just doing the same thing. I pulled out a larger wood stem and doing the same thing by putting some Excelsior, some of that greenery, and then I will add the bow. And they just turned out so cute. What I did, now I didn't get that on film, but to roughen it up and give it a little more rustic look, I did take my sanding sponge and just go over it a bit and just kind of exposing some of that undercolor, and it just turned out so cute. I cannot wait to make more of these. Now I have made some of these higher end looking things as far as pumpkins, and then now I'm adding apples. I also have some orange pumpkins that I have added to my decor, and so I will leave a link to my white tin can pumpkins as well as my orange tin can pumpkins in the description box below. For my Dollar Tree Farmhouse Apple, this is the supplies I use. Now, that apple is from the Dollar Tree, and the whiteboard scrapbook paper, well, actually, both of them are from Hobby Lobby. So I wanted, a part of that checkered to be at the bottom. So what I'm doing is tracing out the whiteboard, and I trace it on the front because I want to make sure that I get my slats the right way. And then I just cut it out completely. Then what I'm going to use is the Mod Podge heat transfer method. And so before I do that, I cut out the bottom of the checkered paper that came from a stack, or actually a pack from Hobby Lobby, that had different colors of check paper in it. I love it so much. Check, gingham, all of this stuff is totally my heart. So I'm going to distress it a bit with my vintage photo distress ink that you can also get in the scrapbooking section. And so I go around just the paper and just add some brown to it. I also added in between, the paper so that it kind of roughens it up. Not roughens it up, it doesn't give it any texture, but it actually looks distressed because of the inking. And so then I had given the apple a coat of Mod Podge, and so I let that completely dry. Then I'm just using my little iron, which is my Cricut mini press, and just press that on. I use a piece of parchment paper in between just to add as a buffer. Now to add the bottom part of the apple, I actually did the put a coat of Mod Podge on that, let that dry, and then attach the bottom part of the apple the same way. Now I'm going to add or actually start working on my bow. And so I have some of this burlap that I got from the Dollar Tree. I cut off a piece of that. Then I cut it in half so that I can wrap it around. This is going to be what is going to be on the stem of my apple. And so I just, glued that down. Then now I'm going to work on the bow. I'm just using some of this ribbon from Hobby Lobby. At first I thought I would, use it like the regular size, but I ended up cutting that in half like that, and then just adding some of those leaves like this, also came from Hobby Lobby, and then also some strips of muslin fabric, some gingham fabric, some lace, and then I'm just going to be using some of this those jute strings that kind of came from that burlap. They kind of fell off, and I just love that. It looks very rustic and very whimsy to me. And so I just gather everything together, and then I just tie it all of it together just with a piece of muslin fabric. And then that is what I use to attach to the top of my apple. I'm going to share how I created this Country Fresh Apples Deco Mesh Wreath. Now, what I'm starting with is a 14-inch wire frame. I get these from the Dollar Tree, as well as some 21-inch burlap deco mesh that comes from Hobby Lobby. Now, what I do is I start in one place at the top, and I secure it. Then I go across and attach it. And this is one of my favorite ways to make Deco Mesh Wreath bases. I do it like this because I do put a sign on my wreaths, and I feel that it kind of gives a little cushion, gives a little bit for my sign, a little cushion, as I mentioned. That is why I do this. And so then what I'm doing is I'm making the bubble technique, and these inner bubbles are about 8 inches. And so I just go and I, just kind of guesstimate. I don't pull out my ruler or anything. A person can. Each wreath maker has their own style of making wreaths and that kind of thing. And for this 21-inch roll of deco mesh, I can get 2 bases out of this one roll. And so then back to how I attach it. I just attach it with some pipe cleaners, and I again go in the inner ring, and then once I get to all the way around, then I'll switch to the outer ring. And so then the inner ring is about 8 inches, and then the outer ring is about 9 to 10 inches, depending on how big I want my wreath. But this is just how I make one of the burlap deco mesh bases that I do for my country style wreaths. Now, I do have a Wreath Basics playlist that you can find in the description box below. In my link tree, I do have a Wreath Basics playlist of different steps that I take to create these country style wreaths. So then when I finish putting this 21-inch Deco mesh on, I will be left with 12 pipe cleaners, and then I will cut 10-inch Deco mesh and then layer that on there. So for this particular wreath, I'm using 3 10-inch Deco mesh. The burlap came from Hobby Lobby, and the red and the green came from Craft Outlet. So I'm going to cut the burlap with the Deco mesh, with the snowball. That's kind of like what I call it, snowball Deco mesh. I cut those at 14 inches, as well as this burlap. I cut those at 14 inches. And so then what I do is I make my cruffles. I bend over one end, and then I bend over the other end, and then I gather it in the middle. I clip it just to kind of help myself. I do both of those the same way. I make an X pattern where they're not quite on top of each other. And so then for the next one, I'll do the opposite way. I'll put the snowball mesh on top, and then the other one, I'll put the burlap mesh on top, just to kind of alternate it, because I just want a hint of it in my wreath. Okay, so for this specialty mesh, this red and green, I'm cutting that at 12 inches. And so then I do the same thing just by bending over the ends, gathering in the middle. And then that is the only one that I'm going to be putting into one of the pipe cleaners. Now, first, I have 12 pipe cleaners, so I have made 12 bundles of these burlap mesh. So I put one in one pipe cleaner, and then I drop down to the other one, and then I do continue all the way around the wreath until I get all of those in, basically in a zigzag pattern. Now, when I'm finished putting all of these 10-inch Deco mesh in, that's when I will go back and I will find the holes. And what I consider the holes are in between the Deco mesh. I will put an extra pipe cleaner in there, and then that is what I put that red and green, Deco mesh in there, just to give it the fullness that I like for my wreath. Once I get all of my 10-inch Deco mesh in there, I have 18 pipe cleaners, so I need lots of ribbon. I like to use lots of ribbon in my wreaths, and so I need 18 bundles. Now, this is the apple sign that I'm using for the wreath that came from the Dollar Tree. Now, all of these ribbons are just fun ribbons that I've gotten. I'm using 3 different sets of ribbons, so how I have them positioned right here, those are the sets that I am using. The first set that I cut all of these at 13 inches, and they all came from Hobby Lobby. I dovetail all of them with the exception of the window pane. I do not dovetail that one. And so I just make my bundles. I have showed this many times, but for my new viewers, I make my bundles. I staple them. I use a little tiny attacher just to help secure them so that I can make my bundles and go. The red and white ribbon here came from Hobby Lobby. The black came from Walmart, and the white burlap quarterfold came from Hobby Lobby as well. And so that quarterfold, I choose not to dovetail either, because I don't like it the way it looks when it's when it's dovetailed. And that is just putting a little V cut in the end of the ribbon. Now this right here, the burlap with the red gingham on the end came from Hobby Lobby, as well as that green came from Hobby Lobby, and then that red and white. That reminds me of a picnic basket for some reason. Whatever. But yeah, I just like that. That one came from Craft Outlet. And so, like I said, I'm just ready to go. I have all of my bundles ready to go. So then also I added some ties, what I do with the raffia is I just make little knots in it. And then I choose which ribbon bundle I'm going to be putting that in, and then that's what I stick with. All right, so I just open the pipe cleaner and I just stick in my ribbon. I've showed this many times. I use the same format on all of my wreaths, but for my new viewers, what I do is I just untwist that pipe cleaner. I put the bundle of ribbon in there, depending on which one I wanted to put the raffia in, and then I twist it back. I cut off the excess of the pipe cleaner, make sure that my ribbon tails are not stuck underneath there, and then that, I just keep moving on. Basically zigzag pattern, up, down, up, down, up, down, until I get all of the ribbon into my wreath. For the apple, it's already really cute, but I'm going to kick it up a notch and add a few of my touches on it because, as I say, the beauty is in the details. All right, so I just use my little liner brush and some white paint and just add some squiggles and some doodles to the apples. I'll also add some around the apple itself, and just to bring it out a bit more. I also add some black Sharpie marker on the apples just to make them pop. I will also add a bit of white paint splattering to it, and how I paint splatter is just running my brush over a stiff brush, and I run the stick over the bristles toward my body so that the paint will project onto, what I am trying to splatter paint. And so I just, that's how I paint splatter. All right, so then now what I want to do is I want to cover the stem of the apple, and I just have this ribbon. This burlap came from Hobby Lobby. I'm just going to wrap that around there and just glue it in place. And then here's where I was like, oh yeah, you want to add some black Sharpie marker, so I can't forget that. All right, so then now for the bow, this green and white ribbon also came from Hobby Lobby. That's in also the some ribbon that I had used in the body of the wreath. So I just make a 2-loop bow like that. I'll just continue to cut off different pieces of ribbon. I like to use a lot of different colors as far as like I pull out colors from in the sign. Now this ribbon right there, that also came from Hobby Lobby, and yeah, I'll just continue to layer my bow until I like the look of it. To attach the sign to my wreaths, I like to use these 1-inch cable ties as well as pipe cleaners. I use these upholstery needles just to thread the pipe cleaner through the thread the pipe cleaner of the sign through my Deco mesh, and then I attach that pipe cleaner to the back of my wreath to that wreath frame, and so that my sign is secure and that it stays on there really nice. All right, these berries came from Hobby Lobby as well. They're off of a garland, and I just love the way that it just gives a different texture to my country style wreaths. Now guys, there is many more country style wreaths that I have in my wreath playlist. So if you like my style of wreath making, please check those out. I just love making wreaths. I do design for a local business. They sell the wreaths in their gift shop. And so that is why I make these wreaths, and I share them here on my YouTube channel with my friends who like these country style wreaths.